Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Woolly Wonka Fibers podcast. My name is Anne, and this is a video podcast about my knitting, spinning, indie dye, and design business. I think some books today. I think that's about it. Today is Tuesday the 5th of September, 2017. Hard to believe it's September already, but here it is. I hope everybody is doing really well. If you are in the United States, I hope you had a chance to have a little extra time this weekend with the Labor Day holiday. If you're elsewhere in the world, I hope you just had a great weekend. Things here are good. We are gearing up to head out. I am gearing up to head out to the Salida Fiber Festival, which is this upcoming weekend, the 9th and 10th in Salida, Colorado. If you are in the area or local to the area but haven't been, definitely think about putting this one on your calendar. It is a treat. It is always a fun show. It's right down by the Arkansas River in downtown Salida. Tons of good places to eat. There's fun shops in town. You can easily walk around, park your car in a central location and then tool around town if you want to do some shopping. If you've got significant others coming with you who maybe are not crafters, there's ATV and Jeep 4x4 tours. You can do fishing. You can do rafting trips down the Arkansas. All kinds of good stuff. One of my favorite shows to vend at. So headed up to do that this weekend. Just have some minis left to skein and gonna pack my trailer up tomorrow and then be ready to head out to set up on Friday. Again, the show is Saturday and Sunday of this weekend. I think it's 9 to 5 and 10 to 4, maybe. I will put a link to their website down below, so if you are local and interested, you can go check that out. So let's see, what else to announce? I did want to make mention that coming up in October, I will be hosting the annual Socktober Stitch Along event, either knit or crochet. Both of those are perfectly acceptable. I will have sock patterns on sale, 25% off, beginning the, let me look and see when I have that set up to run. Hang on, digging my calendar out. Starting on the 15th. So not this Friday, next Friday, through the end of October. So you'll have 45 days to pick up sock patterns if you're interested. Granted, they are all knitting, so if you're a crocheter, got to find your own. But those will be on sale through my Ravelry store. I'll put a link down below. Yeah, so I hope you'll come and join us. There will be a thread in the Woolly Wonka Fibers Ravelry group discussing the knit along. You can check that out. I will open that thread today when this post goes live. That post will also go live. Nothing specific other than socks. You can knit any weight, any pattern, any yarn, any style you want, whatever floats your boat. Just knit a pair of socks in Socktober. So we'll gear up for that, and just to give you guys, a heads up in case you want to start planning. It's a month, almost a month away, little less than a month away. So look for information on that craft along, and I will have other information about next year's craft alongs coming up when I am back from Salida, so my next podcast. Now, today I was planning on talking about the other 4 patterns in the Fall Filament magazine, and I don't have those to show you because Kathleen, my compatriot in crime, who's in New York, is going to be doing a trunk show. I believe it's actually this upcoming weekend. So she has all of the samples with her in New York. I will relink to the pattern collection in case you are a new viewer, and thank you if you are. So you can check those out on Ravelry in case you missed my other podcasts. That'll get you caught up on what those look like. So I apologize for not having those to show since I promised to do that, but she needed them live and in living color on the other end of the country. Right, so let's talk about what I have been working on. I have a couple of FOs to show you guys. The first is a pair of socks. If you love these, you can certainly pick up a copy of the pattern to knit in Socktober. These are the next pattern that I am releasing as part of the Oakham Alphabet collection for the yarn guys. These are knit in my Rhiannon sock, but you know, any sock yarn will do. These are the Abilene socks, and the theme for these was the white poplar, which is another one in the Druid collection of trees. These are in, it's got grok on it from the photo shoot. These are written in 3 sizes. They've got a twisted stitch pattern, kind of reminiscent of tree branches, and twisted rib here at the cuff. Short row heel, you can use any heel you like, but these are written for short rows, and then a wide toe. I really love how these came out. I think they are fun. I think they're great unisex socks. So you just need 1 skein of sock yarn to knit these, any of the sizes, any 3 of the sizes. These are shown in here. The sample color is pewter. The poplar tree has a kind of silvery bark. They're very similar to aspens, and they have a sort of cracked diamond pattern on the bark when they go through their growth cycles each year. So that's why I included those there. Okay, so that is those. Again, we'll put a link to those down below for those of you interested in knitting a pair. The next pattern, or the next FO, is for the Herbarium Club, for the color and texture folks. This is a 2-piece pattern. So this is the first piece. It is the wheat and barley cowl, knit with 2 colors of my Freya DK. The colorways are Mocha and Driftwood. It's a slip stitch pattern, so very straightforward. It gives it kind of a tweedy look, but it also has some, you know, like some almost ribbed texture to it. So cowl, and pop these on, pair of mitts. Again, wheat and barley. So these are the mitts. Let's try to get a little close up there of the stitch pattern. 2x2 ribbing here on the cuffs, and also the thumbs and up here at the top. These can be folded down. I like my mitts a little bit long because I like in the winter to be able to have them folded this way for driving, so that this part of your hand is, you know, the steering wheel is around here and kind of keeps the inside of your hand warm. But then you can fold these back if you need to do something that's a little bit more manipulative with your fingers. So gusseted thumb on these guys, or not gusseted thumb, sorry, afterthought. So you don't have to work any shaping in the pattern to pop the thumb in. So the kits for those have shipped to everybody. They went out last week. I think everybody's gotten theirs, even the overseas folks. Pattern is also available as a standalone on Ravelry and as part of the Herbarium Club Color and Texture ebook. So there are those. Next, this is just I wanted to knit this. I'm in stash down mode. This is a cute little hat called the Mountain Hopper hat. You can see it's got kind of like mountain range look to it there. The yarn that I used is Quince and Company's Chickadee, which is their Superwash Sport. Now the pattern is written for 3 colors, and I should mention the pattern is by Kirsten Kapoor of Through the Loops. I love Kirsten's patterns. I have knit several of her things. Just, yeah, really like them. So I had enough. I used up almost all of this kind of pistachio green colorway to do the ribbing and that little bit of the plain stockinette. And I didn't have very much of this green left. I did not have enough that I was going to finish all the way up at the top. So I used that kind of dark strawberry color and then that darker green. And then there's a very pale shell pink up on the top. This is the second size, so size medium, I guess we would say. Now, I should say that I have a small bag of this yarn and I still have enough left for another hat, but I'm not sure. This hat basically calls for a medium, a dark, and a light. Or at least medium, dark, dark. Something with enough contrast that you can see the stripes in it. I don't think that I have enough of enough contrast color. Like I still have this very pale pink left, but I also have a very, very pale yellow. And those are what I have enough of that I could do these larger sections. So I really wanted, and the yarn is perfect. It nails gauge easily on, you know, as written. I don't think I have enough to do another whole hat, which is kind of a bummer. So I may look and see, maybe I'll kind of do some number crunching and make like a baby hat that I could get by with those paler pastels together. So I got my hair in a ponytail, probably not the best day. So it's not super slouchy. It just has a little bit of a kind of poof in the back, which now has most of my little ponytail bun in it. But and I got all kinds of weird hat head. Anyway, cute, warm, stash buster. Probably won't keep this. These are not exactly my colors, but my mom's church is doing a like set of care packages for some of the local shelters, and certainly could keep somebody's head warm. So finish and more yarn out of stash. 2 thumbs up. Okay, so what I'm working on. I have 1 sleeve left to go on my Bailey cardigan. This looks like nothing. I am well aware of that, but I have a sleeve attached. Body is done. I have this sleeve left to go. I have done all of the sewing up basically to that point because I wanted to set this sleeve in and make sure that I liked how it fit. I think my row gauge was a little bit off, which because this is a set in sleeve will affect how the cap fits, but I think it came out okay. Get my life together here. It's got kind of a rolled shawl collar and then set in sleeves. The collar is knit where you knit the 2 sections in the back and then you seam right here. So the edges are then finished off with an I-cord. That will be tedious, but that's okay. And the pattern calls for pockets, and I haven't decided if I'm going to do those yet or not, but I have this other sleeve to finish before I get to that point. So Bailey cardigan by Amy Christophs. I am knitting this in the called for yarn, which is Moreland, I believe it is, from Classic Elite, in the colorway Queen of Scots, which is kind of that heathery, purpley gray-ish. Just a little washed out there. But yeah, so I think what I'm going to do, because I don't really want to lug this whole sweater along with me to work on in the booth this coming weekend, is I'm going to just work on the sleeve here at home until I'm ready to leave. And then I'll leave that at home and I'll finish it up when I get back. That'll be fine. Not a huge rush. I'm just knitting it to have a cardigan and to get some stuff out of stash. All right. Finally now, let's see, do I have a picture I can show you? Here is the Tilia shawl. Hang on, from crinkly paper, sorry. The Tilia shawl. Pattern is by Ocean Wind Knits. It's really hard to see there, but the other pictures I've got have, you know, actual pattern on them, so I don't want to give that away. So I am working this using an Ocean Wind Knits yarn called Sea Breeze Lace. I don't know that Lori carries this anymore, but it is 60% silk, 40% sea cell. I think this is her sagebrush color, but I could be wrong. I could be totally hallucinating that. It's a very pale, kind of dusty gray green, also from Deep Stash. I have finished the first chart and I have finished 2 repeats of the second chart. And here is where I am. It looks like nothing really. Let's see if I can stretch it out a little. And I am adding beads to my version. Just 1 bead there at the tip of each of those kind of leaf-shaped mermaid tail motifs right there. So I will probably take this with me. It's a fairly straightforward lace project. It's only lace on the one side. You know, the biggest thing is every so often I have to have a row where I have to be sitting somewhere where I can have beads out and not worry about spilling them everywhere. But that's not a huge thing. Be good to work on that in the evenings. I'm also going to take a pair of just plain vanilla socks. I wound yarn for those this morning, but have not started them. They're sitting over there. They're just fun, brightly colored socks. So hopefully I'll have those to show you when I get back. Let's see. Let's talk about some spinning. Haven't actually spun anything. I've just been on, I don't know, just been on a different kick. But I did get some fiber in the mail. These are from Jen at Blaine Fleece and Fiber. These are what she calls her sheepy shells. I will link to her Etsy store. Oh, here's her card. She has an Etsy shop and she raises her own sheep. Now, not everything in these, which are little hand-carded roll eggs, not everything are from her sheep. I think the Shetland is. But it is merino, Corriedale, silk, bamboo, nylon, Shetland, and alpaca. And the colorway is called Roads Go Ever On. It's from her Lord of the Rings collection, which if you know me at all, I'm a total sucker. So I'm not going to pull all of these out. It's a big bag, but just so you guys can see the pretty colors. All kinds of forest greens. There's some brown, some kind of kind of Bartlett pear green, some grays. These are gorgeous, gorgeously done. One of the things that I like about how Jen runs her shop is you can order 1 ounce increments of these. So it's nice because if you wanted to, let's say, make a shawl, you know, for me, 5 ounces is just about right for a good size shawl. It kind of puts me into that 500 to 600, sometimes a little bit more range for yardage, which I like better than 400. And a lot of the, you know, a lot of shawl patterns you can kind of go up or down on. So I have 5 ounces of these guys. I have this bag's worth to spin. I don't think Jen has this colorway anymore, but I think she does have a custom listing, so you could always ask if you love this and wanted to pick some up for yourself. But she has other colorways in the shop. I think she just did an update on Sunday, if I'm remembering correctly. So I'll have those fun ones to look forward to at some point in the future. I did not bring any stitching down to show you guys today. I'm kind of in the middle of a project and it's on my frame stand. So we'll do that next time. I'll catch you guys up on some stuff. I'll have my Under the Sea stitch along that I'm working on and maybe a couple other small things. So let's move on to books. I have actually gotten some things read. I'm still reading via audiobook, which always takes me longer, A Death in Sweden. It's really not my normal kind of book I read. I think my husband would actually enjoy it more. It has, to me, a very John le Carré feel to it. It's sort of that like little unfolding of a spy story, and there's a mystery wrapped up in it, and you kind of don't know who's on what side or who's telling the truth, and it's got a spy in it, an ex-CIA operative. So it's good. It's just not my normal thing, so I prioritized a couple other books ahead of it. So I have finished Jane Austen's England by Roy and Leslie Adkins. The subtitle is Daily Life in the Georgian and Regency Periods. Nonfiction. I enjoyed this book. There were some parts that were a little draggy for me, but you know, it's not like a plot-driven thriller kind of thing. I like the fact that the authors use a lot of historical letters and diaries and some of Austen's own writings, both her letters to her sister Cassandra and her fiction books. There's also a young minister who they have his diary, Reverend Woodruff. His voice appears throughout the book. So that's really interesting to kind of hear a male's version of some of the social things, and then the flip side is some of the words from Jane Austen, some from her letters are kind of the ladies' side of it. So they do pretty much cover everything. They don't get a ton. There is some military history in here, but it is very social history weighted. So if military history is your thing, excuse me, it is sagebrush season here in New Mexico. The sagebrush flowers in September and it kills me. Okay, military history. It's not heavy into military history. It assumes that you know some things are going on, like the Napoleonic Wars, like the French Revolution, like the War of 1812. It assumes that you like have that timeline, and there is some discussion about the soldiers going and the soldiers coming and how that affects economics, but it's not really about the military, what was going on the European continent or overseas in the US. So, good book, recommended if you like lots of historical tidbits and geeky points. This is a good one to read. I then read the Physic book of Deliverance Dane. I will put a link to both this and the Physic book down below. Author is Catherine Howe. So I have had this book on my radar for like 2 years, maybe more, maybe 3. And I'm in a reading book club on Goodreads, that's a Stitcher's bookshelf. They had asked for book choices to vote on for September that had something to do kind of with supernatural or kind of getting geared up for Halloween because it's a 2 month 2 month read along. So I had tossed this book out because I kind of wanted to get it read, and I thought, well, if they pick it, then I'll have a reason. So they picked it, one of two. This book, like I said, had been on my radar for several years. It is themed around the Salem witchcraft trials in 1692. The woman who wrote it is a fiction. The woman who wrote it is a history professor, basically, in New England. So she lives in the area. And I think if you've lived in the area along, coastal Massachusetts, the concept of the Salem witches is like a huge tourist moneymaker. People go to Salem just for that. But it's also pervasive in a lot of the culture that you bump into in that area, is I guess where I'm trying to go with this. So the author does a really good job, or at least I thought, of tying in all of the sort of cultural history of what's going on in that early colonial period with the different villages, the political system, the religious system with the Puritans, as well as this sort of blip in history that were the Salem witchcraft trials. And so there is a little bit of supernatural mixed in with this book, but it's also a lot of historical fiction. Now, those of you who've known me a while maybe know this, but we lived in New England in two different waves. But I also worked on the North Shore 2 summers in a summer stock company up there in Beverly, Massachusetts. And so we would go to Salem on our occasional weekends off, or for dinner one evening or whatever, or just to go to the beach. So I'm familiar with the area, which makes that fun because it's a descriptive enough book you can picture things in your mind like, oh, this is kind of how this looked. But it's really fun if you've actually been there and you've walked the streets and you kind of know how the town is set up. And Marblehead features prominently in the book. What else? Oh, and the other thing I should say is that the authors also pulled in a lot of the different theories about why the Salem witchcraft trials happened. Were they political? Were they also sociologically driven? Were the girls kids who were just making all this up because they got a kick? Were the townspeople actually suffering from hallucinations and delusions because their rye flour had a mold on it, the ergot that causes some of these? I took an entire semester on Salem witchcraft trials when I was my last year in college. It was an upper level class designed for people who were probably going to go to graduate school plus first year graduate students. So all we did is each week we read a book that was on a different perspective of the witchcraft trials, and then we sat around and discussed it. Very, very interesting class. One of my favorites. The professor was awesome. She just whip cracker smart, and so she always had a lot of really interesting things to say and ways to move the discussion. So all this to tie up and say, this book for me hit all of those buttons. The basic premise of the book is there's a young woman who is, the book opens with her at getting ready to take the next step in her dissertation. So she's doing her oral examinations to be cleared to be a candidate for her doctorate, and she's going to be writing up her dissertation on something to do with early American colonial period because that's the type of historian she is. And she's at Harvard. Her advisor is, kind of one of the bastions of their history department. And she is tasked with figuring out a way to find a new primary source that's going to be kind of cutting edge research and not just regurgitation of something that's already been written, something to focus on for her doctoral dissertation. In the midst of this, her hippie mother, who happens to live in Santa Fe and reads people's auras, calls her and says, your grandmother's house is going to be seized for tax, non-payment of taxes. We need to get it cleaned up and put it on the market. Can you go up to Marblehead and, spend the summer, now that you've passed your review, cleaning the place up, getting ready to put on the market, and we will sell it. So our heroine goes to this old house, which is absolutely decrepit. Like, you can barely even see it from the street. It's completely overgrown. It doesn't have electricity. It has fallen into disrepair. The kitchen is a mess. There's no phone. There's no central heat. There's no electricity. It's sort of like going back to the colonial period level of foraging for yourself. So when she gets into the house, she finds these clues to this person whose name is Deliverance Dane. And she comes to find out that this person, Deliverance Dane, was alive in the 1690s, and there's this book that she either wrote or had that Deliverance Dane read from, that's somehow tied up into the history of the house and the history of Marblehead and the history of Salem, but there's like no record of this woman having existed. So Connie goes on this sort of quest to figure out who Deliverance Dane is, not only because now she's interested in how this person ties to her family's house, but hey, this is a primary source that I might be able to use as the touchstone for my dissertation. And so I won't spoil how the ending happens, but there's all kinds of fun stuff wrapped up in that. And the story is told in little snippets that are flashbacks to the time of the witchcraft trials. And then the contemporary part of the book is set in 1991, I believe it is. I zipped through this book in like 3 days, if that tells you anything about how much I enjoyed it. If you like anything kind of historical fiction, if you're interested in the witchcraft trials or just witchcraft in America, or even vaguely in the early colonial period, but you want to read a fiction book, highly recommend this one. I loved it. I thought the pacing was good. I thought the characters were good. I loved the storyline. Again, I'm a little biased. I like the area, and I'm interested in that period. Colonial America was what I did my master's thesis on, so all things I like. If you like those things, I think you would like this book. So again, I'll put a link down below. You can check it out and see. I totally lucked out. My library had a copy, so I didn't even have to purchase it. But having read that book, I may try another one or two of hers. I think she has 4 books. The author has 4 books out in the world. Yeah, so I think I've talked enough today, almost 35 minutes. That's all I've got to share with you guys today. I will be back in a couple of weeks after the Salida show to talk at you some more. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful 14 days or so and some time for crafting. I hope if you're here in the Northern Hemisphere, you are ready to enjoy some fall weather wherever you are, and back to school and football season or sports season or whatever you're into. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, I'm guessing you're glad that it's starting to warm up a little bit. So until I talk to you all next time, take care.